So what's with the picture?
Collingwood's alive!
Alive.
Welcome to the Collingwood Rant. I am Sly.
And I am slightly ecstatic spook.
And we have just beaten Melbourne on the Queen's birthday, traditional Queen's birthday clash, which goes all the way back to
I think
2001.
1979 when they first formed.
Who, Melbourne?
No, Queen.
Okay. They were formed earlier than that. Spook, what do you...
I haven't done any fact searching on that, you may have guessed.
Have you considered going for a job at the Herald Sun?
Yes, several times.
Okay, so what are your thoughts about this victory?
What an absolute ripper. Look, I think we said in the last round, I thought we both were confident we'd win. Well, a little bit confident. I think you made the big 68-point call. You weren't too far off. But, that was a great overall performance from everyone. I think it's probably almost Buckley's best win under his in his tenure. Coxie, so many great shining lights. Great team effort, fantastic win.
Okay, so I'm going to just start by talking about Melbourne.
Why?
I hate this club. I hate Richmond, Carlton, Essendon, but I have a begrudging respect for them. Melbourne have just sat on the bottom for years, garnering draft picks. If you look at Melbourne and Richmond, they were both at the bottom at the same stage. Richmond scrapped their way up to respectability. They won the flag. Melbourne went through coaches, had to get the AFL to install Paul Roos, got a pick free for James Frawley concession and all that.
Barassi's 58-year plan.
Yep. I really am not a fan of the Melbourne Football Club. They have a sense of entitlement, their fans, which are now going into the game. That first quarter, we obliterated them. If we kicked straight, the game would have been well and truly over. Would have been 8-2 or 8-3 instead of 5-5. Their fans, the frees, you were booing that you weren't getting. Are you fucking kidding? Really? The stuff you seriously do not know the rules of the game if that's the stuff you're booing for. And I've seen some of their fans on Facebook complaining about the free kick count in that first quarter. That first quarter was as dominant as we've played a quarter over any opposition. We totally pulverised them. It was reflected in the free kicks because we were hunting them. They were always second to the ball. We were tackling them. We were dispossessing them. I actually think we didn't get as many frees as we should have got. And as the game went on, I kept waiting for that dip, and it didn't happen. It was very reminiscent of the Adelaide game. And the great thing is, you said it's probably the best win under Buckley. We've probably said that about 3 times this year.
Yeah, well, keep going, mate.
So I'm overjoyed that we smashed them. They came into this game with their sense of entitlement, thinking it was just going to be a matter of route, and they would smash us and march onto the grand old flag, their first one since 1964. Wasn't to be. We won on every line. I thought we could have actually won by a lot more. And as you said, Coxie, what a game. What a fucking game from Mason Cox.
We salute you, Big Soul, sir.
Fantastic. Midfield was great. Obviously, you get Stevenson. Fantastic game again.
4 goals.
Hoskin Elliott, who you've been bagging all year. Great game again.
4, but what more could he have done this week, mate?
Should have kicked a couple more goals. Probably the only guy who missed out was Daniel Wells.
Who?
Daniel Unwells.
Yeah, well, by all reports, he's done for the year, so no shock there, really, unfortunately. But
we'll get onto that later. The thing I really liked about this game was just suffocated Melbourne, and a few times they got sort of counter-attacking goals. A couple came from poor disposal. One came from Wells looking glacially slow, who got tackled.
From memory, he copped up essentially the first 2 goals.
Yep.
But, that was just him looking incredibly slow.
Fantastic job by Lyndon Dunn on Hogan, who, totally kept him quiet, kept him goals for the first time this year.
That just means there's only one player who's kicked a goal in every game this year now.
Who's that?
I think it was me.
Needs to do more. Probably their only, not probably, but definitely their major shining light was Tom McDonald, who kicked 6 goals. Yep. But you tend to get that in games where one team is dominated. Someone will just pop up and be like the lone hand.
The old cameo.
Yep. But, Grundy probably got the better of Gawn.
Just slightly. I think it was a very even battle all the way through, but I think he just got his nose out in front.
I think the really important thing was he nullified Gawn's taps to advantage. So that was a win in itself.
And Gawn, to his credit, He did manage to get that little round red thing through those big white sticks at one
For a
stage.
change, yeah.
I'm not sure whether he actually knew what he was doing, but he pulled it off. Well done.
Yep. And you have a number of guys who I think are unsung this year. Jack Crisp, fantastic.
Oh, incredible. I mean, he'd almost have to be borderline on the cusp of All-Australian, I would think. I mean, just in terms of consistency, he's one of those ones that's just going to keep escaping the limelight, though. He's your good, honest, hard-toiling, productive worker at the moment.
Well,
I just don't think he's going to get the plaudits, though, from the media, because they probably don't even know who he is.
He actually reminds me a lot of Ben Johnson. Just coming off that halfback, just runs hard. I think he was on McDonald early, so he was beaten there, but I think, there's a bit of leeway because he's providing counter-attack. Mm-hmm. Tom Langdon, who's been a whipping boy in the side for a number of years.
Yep. Fantastic.
Seriously, for his size, he's one of the best marks I've seen.
Oh, incredible.
Taylor Adams, again, another whipping boy. Great game, kicked the goal.
The big banana.
Yep. Side bottom, Pendlebury, they're getting major ups the whole year. The guy who's escaping that, all that praise is Treloar. Treloar, I think, has been fantastic for the bulk of the year.
Again, Mr. Highly Consistent.
Yep. And he's getting a lot more run involved in his game. And then obviously you have Jordan De Goey, who that first half he really set up the win.
Oh, that first quarter was just incredible.
Yep, he was unstoppable.
Just in everything and applying himself like a madman possessed.
Yep, and you get like a few guys who had cameos. Dagos did a few nice things. Again, you got like 16 possessions where you sort of look at it and go, geez, I didn't realise he got that much. But there was a bit in the last quarter where he just sort of shuffled his way through traffic, which was magical, and it kicked a beautiful pass to the centre. Mm-hmm. Phillips had a quieter one, but still got 19 possessions. So if you're saying, geez, you've had a quieter game at 19 possessions,
it's almost improbable you can pull up after a puff piece in the paper these days. So that was to be expected. But still good.
Myercheck still played a role, had 9 possessions.
Kicked a nice little one after the siren at half time.
Yeah, took a really good mark also. So it was a great all-round performance from every player there. And you think if they can keep this side together, they could go deep into September.
Oh, I think we'll just win the whole thing now, to be honest.
Any final thoughts about because a lot of it's sort of been said. We've gone from also rans to premiership contenders.
It's a curious little thing that we're suddenly into in terms of, you said about keeping this side together. There is a couple of handy blokes on the sidelines. They're almost going to find it hard to get back in. Vargas must be returning. Oh, we're not going to talk about it now? I'll mention it. Forget about it.
We'll talk about like all the injuries a bit later.
Oh, that could go on for days.
Yep. The really good thing up to this point of the year is I've kept waiting for that dip, and it hasn't happened.
Salsa?
Yeah. And you've had a few games like against Brisbane where you thought, shit, that was a pretty average performance, but then Brisbane, beat Hawthorn by 10 goals a week, and you thought, actually, that was probably a better performance than we gave it credit for at the time. Going into the break, I think there's probably a few players who are a little bit tired. They're younger players and all that sort of stuff. So it's probably a good time for the break, good time to reset, and then look forward to the second half of the year, which is probably not as easy as some would think, but we'll talk about that later also. Any final thoughts?
No, thoroughly enjoyed that one. Might actually watch the replay a few more times this week. Or actually over the bye weekend when there's nothing on, because there's some other rubbish football on. But
is Melbourne playing again?
Could be, yeah. No, I think we've got the almighty clash between Gold Coast and Carlton coming up this weekend, so I can't wait for that one.
Traditional rivals.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll be right back with Media Mephitic. Welcome to Media Mephitic. All right, Spook. We get a lot of these occasion games, Anzac Day, Queen's Birthday, the Dreamtime game, the Easter Monday game.
Shrove Tuesday.
Yeah, and now you have Good Friday, mid-afternoon game and all that sort of stuff.
Actually, I like Good Monday.
That would be good. We had driving into the game, listen to Freo W, and somebody on Freo W posed, again, why does Collingwood have an ownership on this game? Maybe because we've pumped 18 years development into it. And just said, given Neil Danaher's connection to both clubs of Melbourne and Essendon, once Neil passes, probably a great way to honour him would be to give Queen's Birthday to Melbourne and Essendon as that traditional clash. Amazingly, this suggestion comes up 4 days after Eddie Maguire says, well, it's no longer just going to be a Melbourne home game. We want a home game now. Also, we wanted to rotate. So, geez, I wonder if there's any coincidence in timing. A couple of supporters rang up and said, great idea. One supporter rang up and just said, why do you hate Collingwood so much? And when he was pressed...
that you?
No. When he was pressed, he said he was a St Kilda supporter. He goes, every time he He rings up, he listens to SEN, for AW, he hears all this bias against Collingwood, and Mark Robinson, being that, paragon of virtue, said, mate, it's not about you, it's about Neil Danaher. Geez, you are a fantastic example of nobility, Robbo. What do you think about the Queen's birthday game?
I couldn't care whether we played on that day or not, to be honest. Look, granted, we've pumped, 18 years or something into this now. It's working. There's that adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if they took it off us and put those two clubs up, I couldn't care.
Yeah, I actually couldn't really. I'm not a really big fan of any of these sort of occasion games. We've got a lot of Sunday games. I'd love if we actually had a few Saturday games. That would be a nice occasion also.
That would be an event in itself.
But it does annoy me that, Collingwood and Essendon had the foresight years ago to say, hey, let's go for some special occasion games. They built up Anzac Day thanks to Kevin Sheedy, largely. Went after Queen's birthday and, magnanimously when Melbourne were broke and all that. Eddie said it can always be your home game. You can always profit from the gate, and that will always help you get back. That'll help you get back on the feet. And we've been doing that for 18 years. We've put the time into this, so I actually think, we actually do have a right to say this is our game. And, you can actually create any occasion game between Melbourne and Essendon elsewhere on the fixture. Why would you want to change it? I understand you want to honour Neil Danaher, and that's great. And I thought it was fantastic. You had all 18 coaches going down the slide in a show of support, and great for fundraising. But again, Collingwood and Melbourne have put the time into this. So I just think that's a little bit unfair for you to say, well, let's just take it off Collingwood now and give it to Essendon. And Essendon then has Anzac Day, Dreamtime, and Queen's birthday.
Just on the slide, I've got to just acknowledge Fagan's performance. It's one of the funniest things I think I've seen in a while, where he's done the hamstring getting out of the bath. Sensational work, mate. Fantastic. Loved it.
And fortunately, the Collingwood medical staff were on hand there, and Chris Fagan will be back in 2 weeks.
I saw Ben Reid laughing at him. That's funny in itself. Did you see that one?
Third quarter. It's not really news, but I'm just going to mention this. Third quarter, Taylor Adams dives, taps the ball on. Dived.
Oh.
Taps the ball on Joel Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Takes the biggest Superman dive over him. It is a free kick. The commentators like Brian Taylor and Tim Watson.
Not the spirit of the game.
Yep.
Totally agree.
Apparently, Patrick Dangerfield tweeted, seriously? At that time, Nicky McGowan said it was, really not in the spirit of the game. What are your thoughts on that ridiculous rule, which we highlighted in round one, also when Langdon...
Yeah, what could have Adams done to prevent that from happening?
Well, again,
he's diving on the ball. He's not going in there with the intent to cut someone's legs out. This guy's just done the big leap over the top and
if you look at, there's very little contact, and he's taken a massive dive.
I think it's an exceptionally bad call on part of the umpire.
I actually think it's an exceptionally bad rule. I think with the rules, you need to actually say you have an alternative to the action that you took. So if you tackle someone too high, your alternative was to tackle him lower. If you drop the ball, your alternative was to dispose of it. If you push someone in the back, your alternative was not to push him in the back. But your alternative is not to attack the ball, it's to just wait, make sure you're not going to take out someone's leg, and usually the opponent will actually take it and carry it away. And I think that's your alternative. That's just ridiculous. Yeah. A player should always be able to go for the ball. That was Adams' intent. That was the only thing he wanted. He won it. He tapped it to a Collingwood player. Brilliant play. And he gets pinged because Joel Smith took this, massive dive over him. It's just a stupid rule.
Yep, totally agree.
One guy got legs broken because someone slid in 150 years of football. Maybe you overreacted a little. Okay, Daniel Wells. So I'm actually going to progress through the timeline here. He went off...
Smoke if you got him.
Went off early in the game. Seemed to have done a hamstring. He came back in the last quarter. He got 5 possessions. They said in the commentary that they probably gave him a jab and numb that area. Buckley was quoted as saying he has a mid-foot sprain. I don't even know what that is. Then he actually said he's confident that the injury would not sideline him for any great length of time.
Yeah, but could you qualify great length of time with these guys?
Well, that's the funny thing. Is like once, he's not going to miss any great length. It's like, apparently he's still going to miss. But 3AW have come out and said Wells needs surgery on his Lis Frank, I don't know, ligament.
What's she got to do with it?
Which could be career over.
Yeah.
Just going on to his performance, the last 2 weeks has looked astoundingly slow. That when he was caught on the wing there, he looked like he had no awareness. He looked like he was moving in slow motion. And I talk to people about Wells, and I've said, repeatedly on the rant, look, I think it's just time to move past him. I'm fine if you want to put him in the reserves and he earns his way back up. But Dees hoping he'll come good. And like I've spoken to people say, yeah, but how good was he that St Kilda game where he hit the pack running and rode? Yeah, like that was beautiful. But that was a month ago. Okay, so if we're waiting for a handful of things in the space of 4 games, in one of those he was rested, that's ridiculous investment, ridiculous returns that we're expecting from someone.
Yeah.
You just need to accept he's 33. He probably will never be the player he was. And that's not a slight on Daniel Wells. Most players at 33 are not the players they were. The one exception is Sean Burgon, who we brought up. But so I just think it's time to move past these guys, because I hated what happened yesterday where he went off for 2 quarters. We're 1 rotation down. It's like we were in control of the game. If it was a little bit closer and, we were taxed a little bit more, then you might have really felt that rotation. So I just think let's move past. Similarly with Ben Reid. So I looked them up. From 2014, Wells has played 10 games, 2015 2 games, in 2016 19 games, 2017 10 games, and 2018 he's played 4 games this year. Okay, so he's not really playing regular season. Ben Reid, 2014 4 games, 2015 5 games, 2016 17 games, 2017 15 games, 2018 he's played 6 games this year. You see, you're not getting a full season out of these guys as it is. I mean, the thing with Reid that's shocking is you go back to 2014, he was only been 24, 25, and he wasn't getting out there. It's really hard call, but I think, you might have to make it and just say, be great if you can return to who you were, but instead of us nurturing you to try and get you there and gambling, you need to actually prove you're going to do it. And, we mentioned it last week. I mean, Malthouse cut Buckley at the end of 07, just said, well, I think you're done. You probably got a little bit left. If they played him in 2008, he probably would have had a handful of nice things he did because he is a champion, was a champion. But at their age, consistently, you're not going to do it. I watched On the Couch, or some of it, or just the Nathan Buckley bit, and Gerard Healy claims imminent signing from the Goey. Buckley straight batted it, didn't really engage, but that would be fantastic if that's the case. And that would actually be a great thing second half of the season to motivate the team.
Yeah, look, I've said it before, but I think each time they send the runner out in the ground, he should have a contract with him and a pen and just say, look, mate, you got to do this, move here, do this, sign this, and then run over there and intercept that. I think it's a fait accompli. Well, I mean, surely it has to be, for the good of everything, it gets done and done soon.
I'll be going if it gets done. I mean, you go back to 2012 when Travis Cloak's contract hung over the whole season with distractions. Yeah. You actually get a young gun like the Go, who's been brilliant, being compared to Dustin Narden, who actually signs, and then you go in the second half of the year and you feel this unity in the 10 game, we're building something. And you'd actually hope that if he signs, you get people like Scharenberg and Moore and all that re-signing after him going, yeah, we want to be here. That's what I hope. Robert Walls.
Hey, our favourite.
Says on AFL Nation regarding Mason Cox.
Oh, this will be good.
I'll tell you what. He's starting to grow on me, this big fella. Big fella.
The big fella?
Fella, yeah. He feels a lot. This big fella. Like, you think maybe round 1 was just one game was a little bit too little of a sample to be making fucking season career calls. Good
on you, Wallsy.
And Cox looked as fucking good as any big man has looked. And the other really good thing about Cox, he gets criticised for, once the ball hits the ground, he's useless. Snapped a beautiful goal. He gets criticised for his distance, for his range. He kicked a goal from 50.
Yeah, which is good.
Same
with his first goal too. I mean, he's come in low and hit he's marked that ball around, quite low for him. Yep. I mean, I think he's realised how close to the ground he was. He hasn't been down there for a while.
It was like watching the 747 coming into land.
It was. Or the A380, actually, probably based on his size.
I just want to say that, I mean, it really shits me that you get these assessments really early in people's careers that, hey, this player's no good. It pisses me off no end. But how good was the USA chant?
Oh, that was awesome. I didn't expect that. I don't know whether it's happened because I have couched a couple of games lately through laziness. But No, that was an awesome moment, and that will stick, I would think, if it hasn't already. But that was great.
Yep,
I got involved with that a little bit as well too. It was
It
good.
reminded me a lot of the old pro wrestling days with the what they call the Dream Team, I think, Mike Rotundo, Barry Windham. Let's get the USA chant because they were fighting the Nikolai Volkov from Russia and Iron Sheik from Iran, I think.
USA.
Yep.
Puh.
So I actually really love that, and it's sort of like, you know, when Luke Bruce goes near the ball, or when Tuve used to go, and they had that rumbling, booey sort of sound.
Ooh.
But for Coxie, and you think he's probably somebody to actually enjoy that, to know that he's been embraced into the fold now. So well done to the Collingwood faithful.
What about that chant that go when Wells goes near the ball? It sounds like twang.
I don't think that's a chant. That's
Oh.
That's a cry of anguish. Chris Mayne's resurgence came back a 5 kilogram lighter winger.
I can't believe how many people got him wrong.
Yep. Who's second in pressure acts, only to Jack Graham. I wish I knew who Jack Graham was. Is averaging career high disposals of 17.6. We talked about Maney. The good thing about Maney is he'll hit a pack and he'll get back up. He's durable. So for whatever complaints we have about how much he's getting paid and all that sort of stuff, at least he's someone can rely on week in, week out, and he's not going to do an ankle or a hammy going through a banner.
My theory on Maney is, in Formula One you have this energy recovery system in the car, that any energy that I think that's expended is reabsorbed back into boof the car up for a bit of a period. I think Maine's hair has a similar job in that any contact like that, the kinetic energy is absorbed into that big wiry mass and pushes back through the body, and he's almost like Superman there for a few minutes.
Just on that durability. Okay, so let's go back to the 5 guys we've got who have histories of soft tissue injuries. So you have Daniel Wells, Ben Reid,
Lee Walker.
No, that was knees. Jamie Elliott, Darcy Moore.
That was soft as well.
Yeah. Darcy Moore and Travis Varco. So you've got 5 guys who have problem bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Elliott is the really sad one because he's a genuine superstar.
Mm-hmm.
He's young and his body just keeps letting him down. But again, him and Moore being young, you hope they can actually improve their core strength and that will compensate for whatever's going in their bodies. But it's like, I'm really sort of worried that, again, you just got a number of guys that could break down on you at any moment. The thing I enjoyed about Monday is just, you got like Myercheck running around. We know he's not going to get injured.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. I mean, anyone can get injured, but it's not just going to be a breakdown like a lot of other players, which you look at Wells, how he did the injury, again, it was just massively innocuous, and so they're the ones that worry me, and Reid has done a number of soft tissue injuries, and you're just sort of thinking, you did it from that? That's really scary. I hope we actually just build for the future rather than hanging on to the past. I hope we can get Moore and Elliott right, and Varco's proven he can play like 4, 5, 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's another guy that's near the end, but the other two are just so close to their prime. Yeah. You've got to invest the time to get them going. But I can understand that you can't do that forever.
Yeah.
But you'd want to give it every conceivable possible option to look at to get them right.
Yeah. Well.
And I think we've obviously we've certainly been going down that path. I think like Moore and Elliott were sent up to Canberra recently to be assessed for their what could potentially be the root cause for these soft tissue repetitive issues there. So.
I mean, the interesting thing too is they're really erring on the side of caution instead of if Moore could have arguably played against Richmond and they held him back for the following game against Brisbane and all that. So they're sort of saying, well, instead of rushing you back, we'll give you another week and hopefully your body comes good. But because they are occurring chronically, you'd think, look, there's something in their genetic makeup that they need to work on. And that's similar to Cyril Rioli did a lot of hamstrings and stuff like that. And he became very reliable physically. So whatever Hawthorn did, Collingwood's got to look at replicating.
Maybe bionics.
That would be good, but I don't know if we have the $6 million because I've been giving them money to Melbourne for the last 18 years. And the last thing is fans think Tom Lynch is leaving and coming to Collingwood.
Oh, where else would he go?
Yeah. Geez, Collingwood's never been used as leverage for any deal.
Pretty much every trade ever.
Ever.
Look, it'd be good. You'd certainly add value, but geez, I think it'd be a hard one to pull off.
But it would be exciting if they did.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's it for Media Mephitic. We're coming up next with our 7-game preview.
You beauty.
So, welcome to the 7-game preview. I was actually going to look at the next 4 weeks, but then I thought,
7.
Let's look for 7 because the 5th, 6th and 7th games are actually interesting. So, after the bye, we have Carlton at the MCG.
Win.
Yep. Gold Coast at Metricon.
Win.
Essendon at the MCG.
Big win.
West Coast at MCG.
Challenge.
North Melbourne.
Wait, so we were playing that one?
MCG.
Oh, hello. Actually, we could be in with a chance on that one. Yeah, next.
North Melbourne and MCG.
Yeah, that's all going to depend on where North are at that stage of the year. That could be a challenge, yeah.
Yep, and Richmond at the MCG.
Win.
Sydney at SCG.
Oh, that'll be a challenge. But, again, they're
So
they are what they are.
We're 8-4. You'd think we'd win the next 3, so it'd be 11-4. And then you have a 4-game marathon, which you could hypothetically lose all of those because they're all good teams.
11 games aren't going to cut it for finals.
No. And then you'll have 3 more after that. But again, even the ones after, like Port and Fremantle over there, and
challenging.
Yeah, so they're not going to be gimmies. Probably at the start of the year when people were looking at the fixture, saying probably would have thought West Coast would be a relatively easy one at the MCG, and North would be an easy one at the MCG. The 2 others would be tough. So probably people would have thought, look, there'll definitely be 5 wins from that lot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a little bit tougher than I think people give it credit for. But what they have to do, what's imperative, is they actually just keep winning those ones which are there to win, like beating Carlton, beating Gold Coast, and beating Essendon.
And make them percentage boosters too, because that could be a very big factor.
Yep, and if they won those 3 in a row, and I think they've done it in a few years, where they've had a number of close losses. Like I remember one year they lost to Port by like a kick, and they lost to Hawthorn by a kick, and they lost to Freo when they were up by a kick. And you think if they won a couple of those, they probably got enough self-belief to start carrying them through the season. If we win those next 3 relatively convincingly, then you'd think, well, that should give us a bit of momentum to put us into those other games like West Coast and Richmond with a little bit more self-confidence than you'd have thought. In previous years, we've been, I think, 8-2. In 2014 and 2015, we were about 8-2, and then it just massively came undone.
I remember seeing the wheels just go down the hill.
But, I mean, in some qualification of that, those 2 years we had a lot of bad injuries going in the second half of the year. You can argue whether injuries...
Touch wood.
Yeah. You can argue whether the injuries were a result of a taxing game plan or overtraining or whatever the case, or if it's just bad luck. But I mean, I think there was reasons that things came undone in those years. The last 2 years we've just really struggled to get going. The way they're playing at the moment, they really just seem to have more of a skill-based game than an effort-based game.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a combination of the load being dispersed across the whole side. Could be a reason why you're not going to hopefully have that many injury issues.
Well, I'd be interested to look at how many times Collingwood's had players who've kicked 4 or more goals in the last 4 years compared to this year itself. Because it seems like most weeks we're having someone kick at least 4.
I'll be struggling to think of anyone.
I can't think of anyone off the top of my head. I think Fasolo got 6 against Richmond a couple of years ago.
Had a reasonable haul, I think, once or twice.
Yeah, but not like this where you're really probably just going to games now and almost expecting someone to get in there and to kick 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And I mean, the really good thing about Monday is because Coxie was on, that probably made the Melbourne defenders panic. And then other guys were just sort of getting in behind them. And these are guys who could have kicked goals there, like Stevenson and that. But they were getting a bit more license to run free because the Melbourne defence was so panicking about this giant that was walking around.
Yeah.
So what do you think from the 7-game there? So if you had to call it, how many do you think would win?
Oh, you think obviously the next 3 are the ones you consider to be the gimmies. And look, West Coast over here, I think you'd almost be half a chance. And belief and whatnot will carry you a long way. And if we do have convincing wins, it's the other sides that'll be the underdogs for a change. I mean, we destroyed a top 4 side yesterday. That's got to give you mentally a great, enormous sense of self-belief that maybe we've turned the corner and we're going somewhere. And that could carry them through a number of wins inside of that lot. I mean, there are very winnable games, even the hard ones. So, look, I'd think 4 or 5 would be a realistic target out of that.
Traditionally, we've done well against Sydney in the last few years.
And they're no guaranteed superstar side. No, they have their ups and downs.
Richmond has shown some vulnerability. They've been smashed by Well, they've been smashed by Adelaide and West Coast, and they just lost to Port. But I mean, even if people will be going, oh, but they beat us by 7 goals. But that game, we were right in it. We were probably in front until midway through the third quarter. We lost Aish and Grundy went off and got injured, and Maynard got injured. So we ended up finishing that game with 3 guys or 2 guys on the bench and 1 guy who was struggling.
And the margin flattered Richmond at the end.
Yeah, so I mean, and again, in the modern game, you lose that rotation.
Oh, it has a massive disruptive effect.
Yep. All right, I'm going 6-1 because I'm insane.
Oh, I like your thinking.
All right, so we're going to be back with the question of the week.
I can't wait.
Now we're here with the question of the week.
And I'm still holding this beer like there's been no passage of time.
No, none at all. What do you want to see from the rest of the year?
Sorry, say the question again.
What do you want to see from the rest of the year?
A premiership.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, let's say realistically. What do you want to see from home and away? Let's take the finals out of it for now.
I want it a bit. Well,
I mean, let's hopefully make.
Yeah, look, I'd be saying final appearance.
Yep.
And maybe win one.
Yep.
That would be, I would say, the baseline benchmark for me.
Yep.
And no more injuries.
Yeah, I don't want to see either season unravel. I want to make finals. They've come such a long way this year in terms of encouraging and their rebuild and getting guys like Goey and Stevenson and all that playing really well, young guys for the future. Just want to see them now go that next step and play finals.
And resign all the guys that need to be signed up too. I should have just signed that one in.
Yep. Maybe re-sign Chris May for 5 years.
Well, could be captain next year, I think.
So that's it from the Collingwood Rant for this week. We'll be taking a break next week. We'll be on a bye also, but be back for Collingwood Carlton.
Oh, the big one. The rivalry match.
The rivalry, yep. Carlton are really chugging along.
Wonderfully.
Yeah, isn't it terrible to see? They're not alive. Anyway, thanks for joining us.
See you next time.
See ya.